This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
As a small business owner, sometimes it feels like no matter how much planning you do, there's always surprises, like an urgent, expensive repair. But here's a surprise you will like. With Progressive, small business owners save 13% on their commercial auto insurance when they pay in full. So enjoy a surprise for once. Get a quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.
Hello and welcome to the Book Club Review. I'm Kate, and this is the podcast about book clubs and the books that get people talking. Before I introduce the episode, let me just say that this is a moment to celebrate, as at last count, the number of downloads on the podcast has just passed 1 million, which is an incredible milestone. If you told me 10 years ago that one day I'd have a podcast that 1 million people have downloaded, I would never have believed you. And so a huge thank you to every one of you who has listened, subscribed and supported me in making this show. Here's to you and to many more. This is also a special episode as Laura was visiting from her home in Vancouver, and so we had the treat of being able to record together here in London, just like in the old days. The lure of a brand new book can be strong, but like many of you listeners, I'm sure, Laura and I both take great delight in finding things secondhand. And so in this episode, we're sharing some of our favourite places to shop and some of the treasures we've found there. I'm also meeting someone who has turned secondhand book shopping into an art form with his collection of inscribed editions. W.B. Gooderham is the author of Dedicated To, a book about the forgotten friendships, hidden stories and lost loves found in secondhand books. He met up with me in Bloomsbury to share more on his unique collection as we looked through some highlights together. As Virginia Woolf wrote in her essay Street Haunting, secondhand books are wild books, homeless books. They've come together in vast flocks of variegated feather and have a charm which the domesticated volumes of the library lack. And so, join us for this episode dedicated to the particular pleasures of hunting and gathering these books from the wild, books that have passed from other readers' hands into our own. That's all coming up here on the Book Club Review. Laura, I know you love a shiny new book. I also know you've got a bit of a supermarket habit.
No, just once in a while. Rare while.
We should say this is a very particular supermarket. It's quite a fancy grocery store, and they do have quite a good edit. But how do you feel about secondhand?
I feel very good. But I don't think all secondhand bookstores are created equally.
Oh.
So there are curated secondhand bookstores. And I really like the idea of them. For example, the Paper Hound in Vancouver. We interviewed one of the owners, Kim, many moons ago when you were visiting.
I can link to that in the show notes. It's a really good episode. We sat there after hours, we drank whiskey, and we talked about secondhand books. It was so great.
And Kim is wonderful, and they have the most amazing edit where they group the books together by obscure themes, more or less. And now this might then sound slightly surprising, but it's not my favorite secondhand bookstore because I always go in looking for something rather than browsing. And
well, this is one of my questions is, do you tend to go in when you know you want something?
I think so.
You're not just going almost, because I feel very much for me, I will go in irrespective of whether I want something. I'm just wondering what I might find. For me, it's all about the thrill of the unexpected discovery.
So there's two close to my office. There's McLeod's, which is this fortress of books. I feel like the ceilings are being held up by towers of books that, if there is an earthquake, will tumble down and kill everyone in there, smothered by books.
It's a real Vancouver institution, isn't it?
It's been there for 60 years. It's quite something. It has a particular smell. It's got a vibe. The owner has owned it for 50 years, and he is incredible. They also have almost everything you want. And even if it's not on the shelf, you can ask them, and they'll be like, oh, I'll check downstairs. Now, I'm terrified what downstairs looks like. But they'll reemerge and be like, oh, here you are. And I really value that. primarily, most likely, because it's close to work, so I can pop there at lunch. I'm often looking for my book club books, which haven't just been published. I don't have a new bookstore that close to me in walking distance from work or at home. So I have a mission. Now, that said, what's also great about McLeod's is because it has everything, it's sort of like browsing your friend's bookshelves. So you just see things. You're like, I've been meaning to read that. Or, oh, I remember that author. Or, sometimes best case scenario for me, you find books that you don't own, but you read and really enjoyed. And you're like, aha, it costs half the price. I now have an excuse to take it home with me.
Yeah, I was thinking that. I think there's quite low stakes. The things I pick up secondhand, when I was looking through my shelves to find particular books that I love that I got secondhand, I found plenty of books that I bought secondhand, but not that many that I'd actually followed through and read. I'm pleased to have them. I like having them there on my shelves. And I thought, yeah, it's because when I pick up something in the secondhand bookshop, or like the Keats Library sale or something like that, I'm happy to have it, but I don't have the same almost like imperative to read it that I would say if I bought something brand new, where I feel a little bit more like, yes, I bought this, I should read it.
Well, this is a bit of a segue, but listeners, I gave Kate some advice the other day, which is my new advice to myself, which is don't buy a book unless it's the next book you're going to read.
I couldn't do that. I couldn't live like that.
I like it because otherwise I get these stacks of books looking at me that make me feel a bit nervous. I don't recall why I wanted to read it that much, and then it looks at me and it feels resentful of Marie Kondo style, does not bring me joy. So my new mantra is that if you go to a bookstore, great, I always want to buy a book when I'm in a bookstore, but I need to know that is the book I'm going home to read. Like, I've got an itch, I'm going to scratch it right now. I'm diving in. Because if I don't, I may never get to it.
I mean, my eyes are wide with admiration at this, but that's absolutely, it could not be more opposite to my own philosophy, which is, I just realised a while back that the experience of being in the bookshop and the pleasure of selecting a book and taking that book home with me and knowing that I'm going to have that book on my shelves, that it's become part of my personal library, even if I may never read it, is the pleasure, which is, I think, a distinct separate pleasure from actually reading the book, right? I feel like it's slightly more getting into like book collector territory.
I was going to say, maybe the time has come. Maybe that's where you're headed. Whereas I have some, first editions that my husband bought for me from the Second Shelf. Is that the name of?
Here in London, yes.
Yeah, the Feminist Rare Bookshop.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is a great shop, but I don't get particular pleasure out of having them. For me, it's very much what's in the book, which again, incidentally, is why I don't really care about a used book being slightly battered. I like good paper quality. That's actually my biggest pet peeve. If it's too yellow and the font is too bleeding, no, I won't get it.
Well, I was thinking, is it actually quite nice having that sense of the book having passed through previous hands before it came to you? I was thinking about how on the Kindle, there's that thing, the highlighted passages.
Digital margin.
And how much that annoys me.
Yeah,
well, I get to those and either I'm like, why did so many people highlight this? Like, I don't understand. Or I'm just depressed because I just feel like I had this really unique response. And in fact, I found that like 8,000 other people also highlighted that passage.
What I never understand about those underlined highlights is I'm like, well, surely it's just a self-reinforcing prophecy because, one person highlights it and then other people highlight it. It's like clicking like what does it mean? Are you just doing what everyone else did? And often, I mainly read fairly shallow commercial books on my Kobo or Kindle, and often what's being highlighted is so trite and cheesy, and I'm like, oh gosh, humanity.
Exactly. But so, a little bit with secondhand books, you do get this sense of the other hands that they pass through. I've a little tiny stack of things I've gleaned over the years that stood out to me. And I had a quick look on my shelves, and one of them I got at the Paper Hound when I was there in Vancouver. Is it 2 years ago, 3 years ago now? No, it was a couple of summers ago. It wasn't that long ago. And this is called Aphrodisiacs in Your Garden by Charles Connell. It was on display on the shelf, and it's a real gem. I saw why Kim had pulled it out.
What a cover.
It's got a fantastic cover. The illustrations are by Quentin Blake. I'll read you the blurb. It says, "This book is intended for everyone with an interest in sex and the possibilities of making it even more agreeable than it undoubtedly is." Addressing himself mainly to those men who are not entirely happy about their virility, the author suggests that the remedy lies in their own hands. Since every Englishman is a born gardener, he can grow his own sexual restoratives and stimulants in the form of aphrodisiacs. Fruits, flowers, herbs and vegetables that for thousands of years have been used to inflame and sustain desire. Although his approach to the subject is fundamentally light-hearted, the author presents an authentic account of the reputed effects of the various love-provoking plants and includes a good deal of genuinely practical advice concerning their cultivation and how to utilise them in aphrodisiac dishes. There are useful hints for the suburban gardener, the flat dweller, the man in the basement room. I think less said about him, the better. The specialist in herbs, indeed for everyone who has some space somewhere for growing exciting and invigorating crops. So yeah, he would not be sold on that. It was, when was this written, actually? Let me just look. 1965. And then inside, on the flyleaf, someone has written, the subject of aphrodisiacs are dealt with in a very humorous manner, but at the same time the author presents sincere information on their origins, myths, cultivation, and various interesting dishes.
And the Quentin Blake illustration has a gentleman fully clothed, holding a watering can with a naked woman jumping into his arms.
I mean, it's all very much of a certain era, but it's also, actually, it's very gentle and rather sweet. And actually, what it really taps into is the Englishman's love of an allotment. It's very much that sort of...
Just bring it together with sex.
Yeah, pretty much.
I should say, I do buy non-fiction used books on a whim. Because I don't really read nonfiction anyway, so I'm purely buying them as objects in that case.
Yeah.
You know, I bought a used book at a Croatian bookstore once because it had the most amazing cover of three people trekking up a mountain face, and I have no idea. Like, I can't read Croatian, but it looks beautiful, and I'm happy to own it.
And the other one slightly in that vein, because I was thinking as well, like, I remember distinctly where I got all these books, even though I haven't sat down and read them cover to cover. But this one also I've talked about before on the pod. I picked it up last year when we were in New York and we had a little weekend sojourn in Connecticut. And on the way back, we passed through a small town and they were having a used book sale, almost like a yard sale in the middle of the town. And I screeched to my husband, like, stop the car! And I rushed out to have a look, and I picked up this book, which I adore. It's called The Transitive Vampire, a handbook of grammar for the innocent, the eager, and the doomed, by Karen Elizabeth Gordon, author of The Well-Tempered Sentence. That's her previous book. And it's very funny. It really is just a gothic book about grammar. But it has these fantastic illustrations and really good examples. That's what makes it funny, is the examples that she uses. So this term, object of a preposition, this is how a noun looks as the object of a preposition. And then it says, that loaded dotard lives in squalor. The pendulum swung over the pit. So the examples are also colourful and fun. And yeah, I adore this. I should sit down and study it properly, and I'd be, no doubt, a much better writer than I am if I did. But mainly I just like having it.
Absolutely fair.
Coming on to books that I possess that I actually read and genuinely was thrilled to get my hands on, I realise I often get books about books secondhand. And again, it feels like this slightly low stakes, like it doesn't matter if they're not really any good. I'm kind of interested, I'll pick them off. But I was very excited to find this recently. It's called The Complete Polysyllabic Spree. It's by Nick Hornby, the diary of an occasionally exasperated but ever hopeful reader. And it is a collection of his reading diaries that he wrote for the Believer magazine. He may even still do it. It's every month. It's the books that he read. But what I also love is he also puts the books that he bought. And there's always quite an interesting discrepancy between those lists. Basically, like all of us, he buys more books than he actually reads. And they're very much a certain style that is following the editorial ethos of the magazine. So they're not critical, because that's not what the magazine, the Believer magazine, wants to do. They're there to celebrate writers and writing. And so his remit is not to tear these things apart. That leads to some very funny... He's always very generous, but he is also a writer and he is critical. And you get this delicious sense of all that slightly bubbling away. But yeah, most of the time he's really holding up stuff that he has enjoyed and wants to share. And I think the thing that makes it particularly delightful is the fact that he's coming from such a position of expertise, and also he's someone who's very embedded in the literary world and very established. So... it's just interesting to find out what someone from that position thinks about all these things that he's reading. And I just loved it. I thought he was such an enjoyable companion. I have read these columns individually over the years. And I think the other thing I adored about this is that individually they're a nice read. Collected like this, they kind of become something more, because you start to see all these really delightful threads running through, running jokes and recurring themes. And it turns into quite a knowing experience, and you're anticipating, you sort of feel like you know what he's going to say, or I don't know. I really, really, really enjoyed it, and I found it incredibly inspiring. And I basically love being able to compare my own reading taste against Nick Hornby's, and that was very satisfying.
I just opened it up, listeners, and landed on the paragraph that begins, I spent a long time resisting the curious incident of the dog in the nighttime. Because I got sent about 15 copies by publishers and agents and magazines and newspapers, and it made me recalcitrant and reluctant, truculent, maybe even perverse. And I was like, oh, well, what did you think?
Well,
Carry on.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting one because one of his sons is autistic.
Yes, that's what he goes on to say.
Exactly.
That's why he extra resents being sent it.
He had a particular, well, I suppose, he seems like an obvious fit for these kinds of books, but he, as a result, really cares about how they're written. And yeah, it was good. I really enjoyed it. And my other one, I suppose also slightly in the vein of men who write about books, is why don't more women write books like this? That's what I'd like to know. Stig Abel, who is the editor of the Times Literary Supplement, I believe, and he did the Times Books podcast for a while. So he's quite a literary world person, although I hadn't come across him before I read this. And I got this in a little secondhand bookshop in a place called Bungay in Suffolk. And I was so delighted, both with the bookshop and with this book. It cost me £3. It's called Things I Learned on the 628, A Guide to Daily Reading. And it basically covers a year of his commute. I get the impression it's probably about maybe an hour each way. And it's about the books that he read on that train journey. But I suppose because he's a literary magazine editor, it's quite structured in a way that I really appreciated. So he deliberately and consciously themes his reading each month. And so as a result, you do get a really nice sense of these different types of books in nice, discrete chunks. And yet there's also this real sense of him as a reader and how he's engaging with the books and perhaps changing a bit as a result of reading them, as we all do, you know, when the really good ones come along or the ones that really resonate with you. And again, I just found it so generative. There were so many books that I haven't got to them myself yet, but it's helpful. It's just that thing about it's just helpful to hear what someone else thinks about them. And you think, oh, yeah, that does really sound like something I want to read. Or, you know, great, I don't have to bother with that. So useful.
It's interesting because I do feel like you are much more interested in reading books about books.
I love a book about books.
I'm always being gifted books about books.
Send them to me.
Sure.
I would like to.
I'm like, I don't want a book about books. I want to read a good book.
I was just thinking the ultimate would be, we were talking earlier about how it would be such a dream to run a bookshop, but you wouldn't want the bookshop to be very successful. Like, you wouldn't want to be like constantly running around having to serve floods of customers. You kind of want a really quiet bookshop where maybe one person comes in a day. Anyway, what the bookshop could be would be a bookshop full of books about books. That could be its thing.
I wouldn't go or buy anything.
Great, because
I see what you've done there. Well, listeners, this also came up because my brother, when he retires, plans to open a coffee shop bookstore. But listen, the coffee shop, he only wants it to be open maybe from like 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And the only books he wants to stock will be boat books.
I mean, I love a niche. That's very specific.
Like, I really don't think you're going to be very like entertained, but what do I know? He's just going to be drinking coffee, having some quiet time while his kids are at school.
I love it. How about you?
Well, speaking of my brother, I'm very lucky in that he has a holiday home on San Juan Island. And so that means that I've got to go to San Juan quite regularly. Now, there is a new bookstore on San Juan Island called Griffin Books. It's perfectly serviceable, but it isn't the kind of bookshop that you walk in and are like, I want to buy 5 books right now. Like, I've actually struggled to figure out what I want to buy to read on my holiday, which is very strange. Maybe on my second or third trip to San Juan Island, I discovered that there's a used bookstore in an old heritage house just off the main street of Friday Harbor. And it is the best used bookstore I've ever been in.
Oh, great.
Like, it has all the sort of like density and encyclopedic variety of MacLeod's, but it's run by 2 former librarians.
I'm loving this.
They know what they're doing.
It's organized.
It's organized. And at the same time, I don't know how they do it. I mean, I do think people in Washington State, I mean, are they bigger readers than across the border in Vancouver? I don't know, but there are amazing bookshops, new bookstores generally in Washington State. And so a used bookstore in this location, especially with a lot of people coming on holiday, they have everything you could ever want. I sent Kate a postcard last time I was there and I was like, this is a done deal, Kate. You got to come. I should say, I think they get quite busy when the ferry goes because people can walk 1 minute up the hill to pop in. And actually, when I was there most recently, there's about 5 people in the shop. And I was like, this is unprecedented. And she's like, oh, the ferry must be late. So whenever the ferry's late, it like fills up. But I think they just have quite a nice time. They got a little fire in there that's cozy. I don't think they ever work at the same time. There's multiple little rooms.
I mean, it sounds great. And that reminds me of one of my favorite secondhand bookshops, which is my friend Ty's bookshop, which is called Barnaby's. It's in the tiny village of Westleton on the Suffolk coast. You have to go round a corner to find it, so it's not even on the main strip. And you see this sign with a ladybird on it, because a Barnaby is an old Suffolk word for a ladybird. And it's basically a house. It used to be her parents' house. And the whole of the ground floor of this house, room after room, is just full of books. And it is organised, but doesn't sound quite as ruthlessly perhaps as your librarian ladies. It's organised, but there's also a real sense of serendipity and chaos, which I just love, and lots of sort of toppling piles. And if you go there, listeners, which I highly recommend you do, you will find there's a shelf that I curated for her, I think 2 years ago, where I basically had the nicest time. I spent about 2 hours going around the shop, and I pulled out all these books, and I'm like, yes, we would endorse these books. This should be our selection. And then when I was there last year, it was still there. I was so charmed.
What is it, like the book club review podcast recommends?
Yeah, there's a little sign.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I suppose I should be perhaps slightly dismayed that they're clearly not flying off the shelves.
I mean, maybe she's kept populating them.
Exactly.
Best case scenario.
But I love her for doing it.
We interviewed that bookseller as well.
Yes, there's a lovely episode. I'll put the link in the show notes. She just runs it all herself. It's a really magical place, and I always come away. I always find things there. When we come back, we're meeting Wayne Gooderham, collector of books with notable inscriptions on the flyleaves. But before then, if you want more from the Book Club Review, let me take a quick moment to tell you about our Patreon. For a small monthly fee, you'll get ad-free listening plus extra episodes. There's an archive of over 50 episodes there waiting for you, with plenty more to come. Access to our brilliant community chat threads, source of many a good book recommendation, and you can join our read-alongs. We're currently coming to the end of The Power Broker by Robert Caro and wondering what to read next. Come and help us decide. At the higher tier, you can come and talk books with me in person every month as a member of our book club. In August, we're reading Transcription by Ben Lerner. For many, a surprising omission from this year's Booker longlist. Were the judges right to leave it out, or is it a mini masterpiece that they have somehow overlooked? Come and have your say on the last Sunday of the month, with a catch-up episode posted for anyone who can't make the live discussion. Head over to patreon.com/The Book Club Review to find out everything that's on offer. And a huge thanks to all my current subscribers who so generously share their love of books with me, but also support me financially, which makes a huge difference in enabling me to make the podcast. I'm incredibly grateful. Right, back to the world of secondhand books, and an interview in a favourite Bloomsbury Square, under a favourite tree, with someone who has made a specialty of noticing things in secondhand books that the rest of us might miss. Listeners, you find me in one of my favourite spots in London, Brunswick Square Gardens, in the heart of Bloomsbury, and I am not alone. I'm here with Wayne Gooderham, who joins me to talk about something very delightful and something that I've only just discovered, which is the joy of finding inscriptions in old second-hand books. So these little handwritten notes that people include when they give a book to somebody to in some way mark the passing on of the book. Wayne, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
We sit under one of my favourite trees in London, the Brunswick plane, which is a fantastic old plane tree here. The thing I love about it is it's so old. Definitely Virginia Woolf would have known this tree. She would have wandered these gardens and she would have known this plane tree.
Good point. Is it turned up in any of her books?
I feel sure, like Mrs. Dalloway or something, when she writes about London and London streets.
But Mrs. Dalloway's...
A bit further away,
yeah,
isn't it?
she's off Bond Street, isn't
yes,
she?
it's up towards Oxford Street, I think, in search of pencils, right? Oh, no, that's a different...
flowers.
That's an
Flowers.
essay. But there's a lovely essay.
Mrs. Dalloway said she'd buy the pencils herself.
That's a separate essay. Because Virginia Woolf, one of the many delightful things about Virginia Woolf, is she loved a bit of flaneuring, but
Right.
there would be a little errand, right? And there's this lovely essay she writes about walking in London streets, and she's going out to buy pencils. That's the errand.
Right, okay, fair enough.
And this is, I think, an excellent way to navigate the city. Anyway, here we sit under this tree, and we are close to a very delightful special bookshop that I know and love. But when I've mentioned it to people, actually, people often don't know about this bookshop. It's called Skoob. It's a little bit tucked away. Wayne, tell us about Skoob.
It's just a great underground bookshop in the Brunswick Centre, just under the Waitrose. They've got a good graphic novel section, which a lot of secondhand bookshops don't have. Good music section.
It's quite an unexpected space when you go down these little stairs. It doesn't look like much. And then when you get down to the bottom, it's actually quite a big basement space, isn't it? With shelves and shelves of books. Yeah. But what's brilliant is they're very carefully arranged. It's quite a discerning
they
edit.
don't just take anything.
Exactly. So you often hear people bringing things in to sell, but they really do.
Yeah,
they
that's
don't
how
just
I've experienced.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so all of this means that it is the kind of shop where you do find these gems. You never know what you're going to find in there. Best thing is to go in with no expectations, and you will find a treasure. I think I pretty much can guarantee that. And I was there the other day. And I turned to this table that's not normally there in front of the front desk. There's this collection of books. I thought, oh, what's this? And my eye was caught by this copy of Moby Dick, which had been in my mind because I'd been chatting about Moby Dick with another friend who's been doing a big deep dive for this podcast that he's been on. And I thought, oh, I should send that to Rob. And I opened it and happened to notice, oh, it's got a nice inscription. And so I photographed it thinking he'll enjoy that and send it. And then I moved to the next book and I picked that up and opened the first page. And I saw, oh, that's got a nice inscription as well. And then it dawned on me, oh my goodness, all of these books are here because they all have these brilliant inscriptions in them. And so then I systematically went through and started just enjoying much, picking out ones that caught my eye and just seeing what was in them. But the experience was so great because you had already done all that work and collected all these amazing books together so that I could come along and just enjoy finding them. So what is it about these books that you love so much?
I like the heartfelt ones, but I quite like the salacious ones as well. I really like the ones that kind of work on sort of a level with the inscription and the book and the fact that it's ended up in a second-hand shop that's been given away. It's like that Snoopy Charlie Brown one I was telling you about. It's a little Charlie Brown picture book. The title's called Winning Isn't Everything, but Losing Isn't Anything. And the inscription side just says, I love you. That's all it says. And the fact it's Charlie Brown, I love you, the title of the book, and then it's been given away. You know, everything works for me on that.
They are so funny and charming. I picked up the Penguin Book of Infidelities, and the inscription of that is, for Rebecca, in case you have any ideas.
I know. And then you've got to think, why has it been given away?
Exactly.
Is it to get rid of any evidence, or is it shutting of the door?
And then this one I love, The Code of the Woosters, P.G. Wodehouse, absolute classic. And inside it says, for John Morris, with very real gratitude, Arthur Marshall said that he always read a few pages of Wodehouse before going to sleep, so that if he died in the night, it would be with a smile on his face.
One of my favourites I don't have anymore, Catcher in the Rye. I think this is the one that started the project. It's from one girl to another girl, and it was like, you think I'm a bitch, a cow, but I'm really sorry. So this is a way of me apologising. And so it's Catcher in the Rye, it's that message. It's been given away since then. And that made me start thinking, I wonder what the story was there. It sounds like the apology wasn't accepted because it's been given away. I mostly buy second-hand books. It never really occurs to me, if there's a book I like, a book I want to read, it never occurs to me to just walk into a bookshop and buy it. I think, oh yeah, I've got to keep an eye out for that one in the second-hand shops. So I went through all my books, because most of them are second-hand, and I just was finding all the books which had writing inside them.
Oh, so a lot of them you just had at home on your shelves, and then you thought
I thought that's a nice... And then I thought that would be a nice project.
You then started collecting them a bit more systematically.
Yeah. And systematically usually involved going into the local charity shops where I lived in Holloway or Skoob and just saying, look, if you find any books with inscriptions inside, could you put them inside? Because otherwise, if you're just standing in front of a shelf for hours hoping something's going to turn up.
That makes a lot of sense, actually, getting a bit of a network working for you. It is magical. Another one I pulled out was The God of Small Things, Aaron Hutty Roy's brilliant Booker-winning novel. And the inscription in this one reads, Sweetheart, the God of small things is the God of the everyday, the minutes spent together that bind the days to one another, the little intimacies, things that others forget, that we carry around with us because that's who we are and cannot get rid of them, no matter how hard you wish or try. Love, Allah.
Oh,
there's almost a whole, as you say, a whole story in there. So I hesitate to recommend this because it's actually slightly hard to get hold of, but you have collected all of these together into this wonderful book that was published by Penguin. It's called Dedicated To by W.B. Gooderham, The Forgotten Friendships, Hidden Stories and Lost Loves Found in Secondhand Books. When did it come out?
over 10 years ago now.
Ah,
It was
wow.
a long time ago.
But it's held up very well because we do have a copy here. And actually, it still looks very, very
2013.
very fresh. But this is really, you get the essence of the experience. You get the shot of the book, and then you get the first title page where the inscription's been written, and you can basically browse through.
And this one's got an inscription.
What does it say?
This one says, "Never let the buggers get you down. Dad's saying beats them all." And I always said, as soon as I come across a copy of this book with an inscription in it, that's when the project would end, because it would have come full circle. But then I just carried on.
I don't think you should ever stop.
But Skoob are the only shop left where they're still putting them aside for me.
Ah.
All the other shops, I said, stand down.
What are some of your favourites?
I really like the selected modern short stories. It's a 2-pager. It starts with saying, when the written word appears before us in its simplicity, then we see that in the joy of expression we may have lost the honesty of thought, which alone makes writing worthwhile. The events of the next few days might help us to decide. In the meantime, prayer and honest desire to do God's will are the only things left to us. It's dated September the 26th, 1938. So if I go to 29th of September 1938, saw the sign of the Munich Agreement. And the emotions today are great anxiety, fear, spiritual loneliness. Of actual physical danger, there is very little fear. Men are prepared to sacrifice themselves for something which they believe is greater than themselves. For many people, the greatest fear is that this civilization, which, in spite of all its differences, embraces so much loveliness and embodies the hopes and dreams of so many individuals, shall be swept away, and that in its place we may see a mechanically perfect but soulless, inhuman, godless society. And that's written on the flyleaf of a book.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's such an insight into how people were feeling just before the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a great one. A few of these I did put aside initially when I was getting rid of them. I thought, no, I'll hang on to that one. 'Cause that's really, and then in the end, I just thought.
I don't think you should say getting rid of them. I think you should say
Giving
releasing them
yeah,
into the, or
back into-
giving them
back
back
into
into
the
the world.
wild.
Yes. Because they're too precious.
This is one of my favourites. So it's words by Jean-Paul Sartre, and the cover just is a quote from the book. "I loathe my childhood and all that remains of it." And the inscription is, "For Mummy, may you read it all," underlined, "clearly and without prejudice, right to the end," also underlined. "Lots of love, Hetty."
Sounds like what my teenagers would give me. I loved, almost because sometimes you get a bit of insight into the reading life. So there was another edition of P.G. Wodehouse, Stiff Upper Lip Jeeves. And the inscription is like a little review, one of the most polished of his works. But then on the other page, the inside cover, this person has listed all the times they read the book. So it first says 24th of July 1982, and then subsequently reread July 87 and November 89. Very enjoyable, though the Americanisms are more frequent than in his early work. And then October 91, October 93, September 2000. And just the sense of this person coming back to this book again and again. If you ever were to give a book to somebody now, do you think really carefully about what you write in it?
I never write inside books anymore.
I don't
always used to.
Did you?
Yeah, always. And now, since I did this, I wouldn't dare write inside any book.
Yeah, I think the thing that stopped me was always feeling like whatever I was thinking of saying was just going to be really banal. And like I wouldn't want to annoy the person.
I mean, I find it hard to write just birthday cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Coming up with something funny.
But I felt very humbled by, I feel like people in past eras, they had a better turn of phrase, they were more eloquent, perhaps because so much of our communication now is digital. And this is going back to an age where it really wasn't. It was about things that were written down and they would last.
Yeah.
But people weren't afraid of that. It felt natural to them to think carefully and then put down some lovely little thing and off it goes, in a way that now, to us, to sit down and compose something like that and commit it to permanence in that way is different, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I keep coming across them, and one of them is The Diary of a Nobody by George and Wheedon Grossmith. So this is a lovely orange penguin published in, I think it's 49, is it? This one? Yeah, 1949. But it was originally written in 1894.
That sounds about right.
And the inscription reads, "What can you expect from a bloody relation?" But so that's funny because what's interesting about reading it, I'd never read it, so I picked it up.
Oh, it's great.
Love the inscription. And it was in my mind because for the literary festival I was involved with, they did a live reading of Diary of a Nobody in the wood.
Real.
And I wasn't able to go, but I was curious. What is this book that they're reading out loud? And so what's brilliant about it is you actually see, in a way, it was almost like the first diary in this sort of comical, satirical style that then you can see echoes of all over the place in a really interesting way. So even thinking about things like Diary of Adrian Mole or Bridget Jones's Diary, there's a kind of lineage, but it goes back to this book, it feels. You might have heard the expression pooterish, meaning to be a sort of, how would you describe it? Very class conscious, status conscious, perhaps status obsessed. A little
meek.
We talk about little Englanders, like very kind of like my patch, my world. This is how I like things to be. Quite close-minded. All those things I think are suggested, but I never realised this is where it comes from. So this character, Pooter, he is married. My dear wife Carrie and I. They live in a house called the Laurels in Holloway.
Yeah, in Holloway.
It's funny because he describes it a nice 6-roomed residence, not counting basement, with a front breakfast parlour. We have a little front garden, and there is a flight of 10 steps up to the front door. And what's hilarious about that is that the whole thing about this is that the Pooters are middle class, and that this is on the fringes of respectability. And these are like £2 million houses, like extremely aspirational for contemporary Londoners. And it's about his daily life and his struggles in a way to keep up appearances. Yeah. It's that, isn't it?
Does he paint the bathroom black?
But he gets these whims and enthusiasms, and one of them is that he buys this pot of red enamel paint. And then he starts painting things with this red enamel paint. And he gets a bit carried away and he ends up painting the bath. And then it's in the very perfect comic timing. That sort of happens, a couple of chapters before. And then he's invited to the Lord Mayor's dinner, I think it is.
Yeah,
some
that's one of my favourite
fancy
scenes.
thing, yeah. And he has a bath before he goes. And he holds up his hand and he thinks it's covered in blood. And it's not. It's red enamel. The reason I think it's such a joy and a delight is because although this character is being mocked, at the same time, he's not being mocked.
No.
It's a very human portrait of someone. He's very endearing and very relatable.
Yeah, and a great unreliable narrator. One of the great examples of an unreliable narrator, especially after the Lord Mayor's, where he's hung over the next day.
Yes, that's right.
And he can't. He says, "I don't know why my wife's so cross. I don't know why I feel so bad. I think I must be coming down with something."
Yeah, and then you get her account where apparently he stumbled into the carriage and ripped her dress and then sat and smoked the entire way home. Anyway, I'm about halfway through it. It is an
great,
enormous
and
delight.
the illustrations are fantastic.
And then,
as well.
yes, it's Wheedon Grossmith, who I hadn't known about before, turned out to be the illustrator. And back in the day, these two were quite the men about town. They were both involved with Gilbert and Sullivan operas. They wrote, they composed. Wheedon Grossmith eventually took over the management of Terry's Theatre. They were very much like on the scene, and it's all just very... It's been very lovely discovering it.
If they wrote anything else.
Good question. Interestingly, on the back of this penguin, you get the biogs of the authors, and you don't actually get anything about what the book's about. And then inside is where you get the description. The concoctors of this elaborately amusing diary, which first appeared in Punch in the 90s, were the celebrated brothers George and Wheedon Grossmith, as wittily inventive a pair of writers as that golden age of comedy produced. It was Wheedon, incidentally, who drew the cartoons with which the diary is so vividly embellished. And yeah, it does have these lovely illustrations. That's something I found, a treasure I found. But how about you?
Oh, God, I've got loads.
What are some books that you love? I was saying to Wayne, it's funny that to do this interview, I brought a bag with 5 books in it, and he's actually brought a sack of books, and that for both of us, this is the minimum books we feel we need.
So, on a diary tip, come across these.
Oh, these are beautiful first editions of Adrian Mole, the growing pains of Adrian Mole, and the secret diary. Oh, these are
which
lovely.
Which are the only 2 you need, I think.
Wow, this takes me back.
And I'd also say that Secret Diary of Adrian Mole and actually Growing Pains are the funniest books I've ever read. I really love Nabokov and Martin Amis, but just for laughing out loud, it's the Adrian Mole books for me. I've actually had to put it down because I was laughing so much at one passage in Growing Pains.
Yeah, it's funny because I would have had a paperback of this as a child.
Yeah, I did as well.
Which I read. I didn't love it. And it would be interesting because I've never come back to it as an adult.
Oh, I get a bit annoyed when I see them in the children's section because they're not children. They're about a child, but they're
not really.
They're much funnier when you read them as an adult.
I would be very interested to go
back.
They're
fantastic. You definitely should go back.
And then the Growing Pains is the follow-on, is it?
Yeah, and it's just as funny.
And then it's gone up to the present day, hasn't it? Have you read any of the contemporary ones, like the Cappuccino
years? No, I haven't. I don't know if I will. I love these so much.
Doesn't have quite the same magic.
Yeah, it's like Back to the Future 2 and 3. I will not go near those films.
I love these editions. What else have you got in your sack?
The best find, where is it?
Angela Carter, Wise Children.
First edition hardback.
That's beautiful. Oh, and it's got amazing end papers as well. And then inside,
there's a
book plate, and it's been signed. Regular listeners, I only mention this because people who listen to me a lot will know that I'm actually shamefully not an Angela Carter reader. I've just yet to discuss her, but I understand the
have you read Wise
significance.
Children?
I haven't ever read her.
Oh,
I know.
read Wise Children.
Can't even talk about it, but
This is in my top 10 books of all time.
it's weird because I'm sure I will absolutely love her, and I know what an important author she is.
And it's like
this
£3.
is so beautiful.
£3.
You got that for £3? Well, so
My hands were shaking.
This is
as
the
I
other
bought
thing
it.
we should talk about, which is the economic joys of shopping secondhand. New books are expensive. What is it now? Almost £18 for a nice brand new hardback.
Yeah.
And one of the thrills, I think, of shopping secondhand is in the find, right? The
Yeah.
bargain. We all love a bargain. And you can spend £10 in somewhere like Skoob or the Amnesty International Bookshop, and you're going to come away with 2 or 3 books.
Yeah.
And each of those books is going to keep you going for weeks.
Yeah.
It's hard to think of more worth your time and
Yeah.
money shopping than secondhand book shopping.
This is a side project which took me years to complete.
This is a stack of
Yeah.
books, all by one man. So they're all editions of, how do you pronounce it?
Pnin. I pronounce it Pnin.
Another one I've never read.
And the idea is to get Pnin Pnins. And it took me years.
1, 2, 3,
for
4,
the- for
5,
that
6,
single
7, 8,
gag.
9. Worth it.
Yeah, I think it was worth it. The internet did not crash. But it's probably one of my most popular postings for me.
Yeah. And it's a slightly different type of vintage book shopping, isn't it? That you can go somewhere like Skoob or even Amnesty or Oxfam Books, where it's all been pre-edited for you.
They know what they're buying.
But charity shops, like your average cancer research, can't think crisis or whatever, generally they'll just have a shelf at the back, won't they, of paperbacks.
Yeah.
And it's almost more exciting because
Unless
it's not been...
curated.
Yes.
Unless they're displayed by colour, which is a bugbear of mine. I can't even be bothered to browse when it's
You won't even
colour coded.
You're like, you walk
I just
away.
turn away, walk straight out.
Dead to you.
I make some comment as I'm leaving.
I once had my books organised by colour. I am a graphic designer,
Yeah.
so you can't blame me. I am interested in aesthetics. And all I would say is, when you do that, what happens is you get some very interesting juxtapositions, which I
Yeah.
think you would enjoy. Because your sets get split up.
That's true.
I used to quite like it as a way of browsing my library because I would make these unexpected connections or pick up things that I wouldn't normally look at
Well,
because they happen to be next to something.
This is my big fear because I just moved and the new flat I'm in has got a long hallway downstairs. So it's 1 floor flat, but to get there you have to go through a long hallway to get to the stairs. And I just thought, I could put some bookshelves down here. I thought if I just get 2 more shelves units, I could have all my books for the first time ever 1 row deep rather than 2 row deep.
Because you normally double up.
Yeah, and not double up, but have stuff all over the place. Yeah, but I could have everything in the same place, 1 row deep. And then I thought, great, I'll arrange them all alphabetically. And then halfway through doing that, I was thinking, is this a good idea? Because I, like you, I quite like the fact of having books grouped together, like having Joseph Conrad and Ford Madox Ford together on the shelf. That kind of ordering I quite liked.
Have you ever seen the film of Umberto Eco and his library?
No, but I've read about his...
He had the most extraordinary library. And there is a wonderful clip you can see on YouTube. I'll send you the link. I'll put in the show notes. That's actually extracted from a longer film, which is incredibly hard to get hold of because it's not distributed here in the UK, but I sourced it. And you get a tour of his library.
Yeah.
And the camera follows him as he walks down these shelves, and it keeps going and going
God.
and going. More books than you can possibly imagine. And then he comes out into a bigger space that's also full of books. And because it's Italian, it's all really beautifully designed.
It just sounds vulgar.
I think it's not, because it's a
No, I'm
bit
joking.
like your collection. It's the sense that he doesn't have just any books.
Yeah.
Every book that's in that collection is there because it's in some way meaningful.
That's the whole way.
Oh, he's showing me. Yeah. Actually, you know what? They're nice white, is it Billy bookshelves?
They are Billy bookshelves.
Absolute classic.
Yeah. And now they are alphabetical. I think actually it works. I can do that, I think.
Yeah, nice.
Well, it's done now. I'm not going to change my mind. What am I going to do? Jumble them all up?
It's a lifetime's project, isn't it? Arranging and rearranging your bookshelves. I think you could very happily do that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I am. I'm tentatively happy.
I can't think of any nicer way to spend an hour than sitting in this delightful park, surrounded by books, and talking to you about your collection. Wayne, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So Laura, what are you looking for in secondhand bookshops? What are you always hoping to find?
Georgette Hare, first and foremost.
Yes.
Love to find a Georgette Hare novel, mainly because I read all of them on Kindle, I don't know, 18 years ago. And so I don't actually own that many copies. I've been wandering around Kate's house looking at her bookshelves, and there's a Georgette Hare on every other bookshelf. Yeah. I actually just took Arabella off the shelf and was like, oh, I could read this. I'm like, no, Laura, you have other reading to do. You can't spend 24 to 48 hours rereading Arabella. I don't remember the plot.
They're dotted around everywhere. The ones I collect now are the old Bodley Head editions, which are hardbacks.
Yes,
and
I have a few
really
of those.
Fantastic covers, and they're so great. And you do find them every so often. You come across one, and there's always this, great.
I always want to frame book covers, book jackets. But I can't quite bring myself to divorce them from the book object. This was a real push-pull. What I found the last time I was in Serendipity Books was Dorothy Dunnett. I was looking in historical fiction. I was like, that's so strange. They don't have any Dorothy Dunnett. I'm looking up and down and then kind of turn around because it says, like, there's like a obscure arrow, like turn left and right and look over there. And she had the entire series. Someone had cleaned out, been like, nope, don't need these anymore. And so I bought myself House of Niccolo, which is the first in one of her series. And then I also, so that I could have my brother read it, incidentally. And then I also got the Game of Kings, which was her first series. And it's the first of the Lyman Chronicles. And I'm pleased to be almost done it. I'm almost done the done it. Yes.
You nearly done it.
Incidentally, I haven't finished either series because they're very long, dense books. I read the first half and I was like, oh yeah, I remember this book. And then I'm just about to finish it. And I'm like, I don't remember any of this. And I know it was 15 years or so ago. But did I actually read it? I don't know. The whole denouement, there's been a big brotherly feud. You think Lyman's a terrible human being, which is why Kate didn't keep reading. But is he Kate? Is he? You have to keep reading for another 500 pages to really find out.
Not going to invest that much time in someone that I'm that ambivalent about.
Fair enough. Other, maybe not discoveries, but guilty pleasures at used bookstores was I finally picked up V.E. Schwab's A Darker Shade of Magic.
Oh.
I wandered in. You had talked about it. I was in the mood. I took it home. I read it. I was like, that was great.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was really on tenterhooks.
So enjoyable.
What's she going to say?
Really good. And now I'm just going to keep my eye out for the second one. There's no rush.
Oh, yeah.
I'll be in a used bookstore. I'll see it. I'll be like, yeah.
It's a trilogy. It's a perfect trilogy. Each one builds on the last one. The characters develop. And oh my goodness, I've read those so many times. I love them so much.
When I lived in London, I also went on a really good run of always going to Judd Books in Bloomsbury, which has... it has a mixture of new and used books.
It's a very interesting mix in there.
It's quite idiosyncratic. Like you don't really go in. It's maybe a bit like Paper Hound. If you go in there looking for something specific, you're probably not going to find it and be a bit annoyed. But if you go in there thinking, I really feel like reading classic from the 1920s, you will find, as I did, beautiful orange penguin classics of Yves Lenoir. And I have a stack of them back home in Vancouver because I shipped them over. And you get a sense of reading really from they're not all classics. I'm saying they're classic ones, but often they're just like beautiful reprints from 50 years ago that aren't the top of the Yves Lenoir list, but really give you a sense of his very, very broad, I was going to say oeuvre. It is an oeuvre, but, sorry, listeners.
And the only other thing I'd say is, like a shiny new book is a beautiful thing, but sometimes these old editions, they were just lovely. They were really beautiful physical objects. They were well made. I often now, when I buy secondhand, I often will seek out really nice hardback editions of things. I just like to have them. I suppose knowing perhaps deep down that I'm not going to read them. But yeah, and there's a real pleasure in that. The old things actually often were arguably more beautiful than the contemporary editions.
I was just reading an interview with the owner of MacLeod's Books, the shop that I mentioned in the beginning, the one with the tumbling towers of books in Vancouver that's been there for 60 years. Anyway, I was just reading it to understand the history of that store a little better. And one of the things the current owner says, he's 72, he's owned it for 50 years, is that what he loves about used books is that it really gives you a much better sense of popular reading over the last 100 years.
Right, at certain periods in time.
At certain periods in time. And then he also said it's very interesting for him because he'll see waves of what comes in and out and how different generations interact with previous authors. So he's actually seen 3 Leonard Cohen waves in his time of him coming in and out of fashion.
Yeah, because it's like Barbara Pym, right? She's always being rediscovered.
Yeah, and I was quite heartened once because I was like, oh, do you have any Ursula Le Guin? He's like, oh, no, I can't keep Ursula Le Guin in the shop. So,
as it should be. All right, this has been delightful. May we have many happy years of secondhand book shopping ahead of us.
Very importantly, they're less expensive. They don't cost the environment anything. It's pure guilt-free reading and purchasing in my mind. So go forth, listeners.
That's nearly it for this episode. You'll find all the books mentioned and links in the show notes. Find out more about Wayne and browse the gallery of his inscribed editions at his website, bookdedications.co.uk. Keep in touch between episodes on Instagram at Book Club Review Podcast or email thebookclubreview@gmail.com anytime. I always love to hear from listeners. And do check out patreon.com/The Book Club Review for all the extras that are available there, plus book club membership. This month we're reading Transcription by Ben Lerner, while in September it's Reading Lolita in Tehran by Azar Nafisi. There's a special episode just for patrons coming out shortly in which I'm joined by pod regular Phil Chafee to compare notes on The Odyssey, both original book and the recent Christopher Nolan film. And hopefully just in time to catch you on your beach lounger, next up on the main feed is our summer reading episode, in which Phil, Laura and I are recommending a stack of can't-fail books for when you really want a good read. But for now, thanks for listening, and I wish you all happy reading.
You're listening to this podcast, so I know you've got a curious mind. Here's a helpful fact you might not know yet. Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $900 on average. Pop over to Progressive.com, answer some questions, and you'll get a quick quote with discounts that are easy to come by. In fact, 99% of their auto customers earn at least one discount. Visit Progressive.com and see if you can enjoy a little cash back. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National average 12-month savings of $946 by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2024 and May 2025. Potential savings will vary.
As a small business owner, sometimes it feels like no matter how much planning you do, there's always surprises, like an urgent, expensive repair. But here's a surprise you will like. With Progressive, small business owners save 13% on their commercial auto insurance when they pay in full. So enjoy a surprise for once. Get a quote in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Discounts not available in all states or situations.